I've had mostly SEALs as far as military background guests. I would love to kind of get your take on, having worked with a lot of SEALs and knowing pretty intimately what our process is like. Could you kind of highlight the differences between, what the Q course selection is and your guys' pipeline versus what you know about ours?
Yeah, there's a definitive difference, right? There's a huge difference in the two. SEALs are considered operators in their service, and there's no other options really for combat-driven MOSs, frontline MOSs in the Navy. So you're it. You're a special operator for your service, your branch. Well, in the Army, most guys who try out for Special Forces have been some way, somehow, typically affiliated with combat arms, meaning a job that's on the front lines, whether that's combat engineer, combat medic, infantryman, and the list goes on. You could even have guys that are, Ranger Battalion, snipers, and RRD, one of the most elite units in the Army, come try out to be a Green Beret. And one of the distinct differences is the SEAL teams, and SEAL specifically, focus on direct action operations, which includes special reconnaissance, DA, and the list goes on. We have something that has become, it's always been part of what you guys do as well, but we have a real hard focus academically and practically in our training for foreign internal defense, which is training indigenous personnel, right? So we have things like outside of small unit tactics, we have things like Robin Sage, where we have this like fake little world of recruiting and assessing and then training and then operating with an indigenous host nation force. So I think that's a big difference is culturally, at least initially, you had to understand language, you had to understand the terrain that you're operating in, and then work unconventional warfare, which could mean training personnel to have access and placement to do operations, as opposed to just kicking indoors. Now that's changed because of the environments that we find ourselves in, like Africa, for example, where you guys have always trained in South America and Africa and all over the world. Now it's becoming, for every special operations unit, more of a demand to be trained to train somebody else in different countries.
That's one of the things we did on a number of occasions, the foreign internal defense and training different groups. And I know for us, and I'm curious because you guys kind of specialize in that quite a bit more than we do. Is there I guess what I would call kind of a general understanding with you guys in terms of, yes, we're teaching host nation, but you're not giving them the fucking playbook. Like it's a measured amount of training. Yeah.
Most of our POIs, or periods of instruction, that are taught to indigenous forces are typically approved through a concept of operations approval process. So meaning I can't just go out and just teach whatever I want to teach.
Yeah.
We have to teach specific things based on the mission, and that could be accelerated depending on what we're trying to accomplish at the end of it. Like I've ran counterterrorism training operations where we had to train and then operate with these guys, and it would be anything from basic small unit tactics to basic CQB to all the way to advanced things, depending on the relationship that our country had with that host nation.
Yeah. History tells us that going too far above and beyond what the bare minimum is just flat out a fucking mistake. Obviously you don't want, if they're guys, operating with us, you want them at least squared away enough to where they're not an enormous liability, which some of them are, irrespective of how much time you put in. But did you ever have instances where, that kind of came back to bite you in the ass of working with those guys?
Man, it's not very, it's predictable, but it's not very apparent. It's probably happened every single time. Let's be honest. We're training in foreign countries, people who grow up in dirt. They're dirt farmers. They live in dirt. They have no running water, electricity, and they're going to cater to the highest incentive. If somebody comes across and is like, "Hey, man, we'll pay you more, or we'll do whatever," patriotism and nationalism isn't really instilled even in those cultures. It's very tribal. So who's to say? I think one of the things I always fought for, even against high-level chains of commands, even as a sergeant major, that I fought for, is we are overcomplicating an easy process. I don't need to teach these guys CrossFit. I don't need to run advanced free-flow CQB. I just need to get enough of them taught to safely fire maneuver on an objective where bad guys are, and that's enough for me. Yeah. And that was a constant struggle for us.
Is there a funniest story that you have? I'm sure you've seen that video of trying to do fucking jumping jacks in Iraq. Have you seen that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, I mean, I can watch that 1,000 times and still laugh my ass off. Do you have a similar, like, this one time we were working with X and this happened that...
I was in Libya running a 1208 program, which is, for people who don't know what that is, it's nothing classified. You Google it. It's a congressionally mandated counterterrorism program that's congressionally approved and financed to basically take a host nation that needs help fighting Al-Qaeda, training them up, supporting them, and then combat advising them on the battlefield. I was running this program, and SOCAF, as Special Operations Command Africa, would not get off their ass, which is common to the command. They've since, I think, improved. I mean, I hope they've improved. It's been a decade. But when we got there, we didn't have anything. And they wanted us to do a capability exercise. And they wanted us to have generals and colonels and high levels of chains of command on site to observe. And I said, listen, you guys haven't provided guns or bullets, and you want me to do it. I could air gun it. And they're like, what do you mean air gun it? I was like, what do you want me to do to demonstrate our tactical capability in conducting a raid if I don't have guns?
Bust out the M16.
That's what we did. Yeah, there we go. So there's a whole bunch of palms, obviously being off the Mediterranean. That's and they thought I was joking, but I had no other option. So I said, everybody, go get a palm tree. Go start breaking off limbs off palms and choose your weapon system.
So to me, this highlights me being a smartass was actually what really happened. Mm-hmm. So if that tells you anything.
Exactly. So we did a whole entire, it called mod demo, demonstrating our capabilities with sticks. I even had guys who had like pine cone style pieces of woods in their pockets as grenades and flashbangs that were using them. Great. And I'm like, dude, this is where we are in counterterrorism
like
right now.
Like you're 10 years old in the fucking treehouse playing war.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. What year was it? Like 02 when you went to selection?
02 when I went to selection, and then straight to the Q course right after that.
And so from there until I guess if you could kind of highlight your time as a Green Beret, a number of deployments where you went, kind of chronologic.
Yeah, so I got into SF. I deployed to Afghanistan for 9 months. I was in a remote fire base in 04, 05. I was actually part of Operation Red Wings.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I was in Charlie Company's 2nd Battalion, so we owned all the fire bases from, Bagram all the way up to Naray, which was the fire base that I was in. So, below us was Asadabad and Jalalabad, and 3 of our teams deployed to rescue Marcus Luttrell, and then my team sat on an airfield for a week during the whole thing that was going on, and I spent 9 months in just a small fire base in the middle of Afghanistan during that.
During that time, when he was on E&E and subsequently, what was the morale and feeling like of you guys being over there while that happened?
It was tough. I remember every little bit of it. I was a young staff sergeant, Green Beret. We were getting rocketed and attacked almost nightly. It was pretty chaotic. That year was a bad year for everybody in special operations, including the Navy. I was the guy who was going back as the 18 Bravo because I ran indigenous guys at the time. So I had to go back and get cash to pay these guys.
How much did you skim off the top?
Just 10%. I looked at it when like 10% is a safe number.
Yeah. It's like the tithe, right?
Yeah.
It's like going to church. Give me 10. Yeah.
Going back and forth and everything, and we lost. I remember the week that I infilled, we had a Chinook hit with 107s. Killed 3 guys on the ground. We lost 3 Chinooks that time period, including the one from the Navy, the MH-47. We lost the Chinook on one of our ops, the MH-47. So it was just a hectic year. And when that kicked off, I was on radio guard at the talk in our fire base. We had 15 to 20 Americans with about 100 Afghans in the middle of nowhere. And they started letting us know that things were going down. We prepped our equipment, preparing to roll out. The initial QRF, they basically gathered everybody at Camp Vance and said, we're going. So a lot of guys just went. And then we responded by assisting those guys. And I remember hearing the initial movement. One movement was going to recover the MH-47. Another unit or element was going to recover Marcus Luttrell. And I felt helpless being in the situation I was. I knew we had a task and purpose, which was sitting on an HLZ, standing by to assist them because if they needed reinforcements. But I hated hearing the struggle that was going on and not being a part of it because, if you've never heard the story, even with the body recoveries, when they infilled, they ran out of food, they ran out of water. They were doing CDS bundle drops. That terrain was brutal. I mean, I was in the middle of the Hindu Kush at 10,000 feet, and we couldn't move anywhere without elevating. It's not like we were getting any low ground there. So it was a sombering feeling. And when the bird went down, we knew it went down. And then we knew when we had two teams that went in with the Rangers to rescue Luttrell. Both of them noted in his book. I think one of them he called like a black, an African-American medic, Ranger medic, was actually one of my buddies that was on the scuba team. He also noted one of the commanders that was head of the Rangers. He was actually a Green Beret, and his name's Kent. He was in charge of the ground force. He was the ground force commander of the organization that went in to physically extract him. But yeah, it was sombering to say the least.